This week in Grace's Girls Club, I have a very, very special and accomplished guest with me, and I'm going to let her tell you all about what she does. So let's go ahead and get started. I want you to meet Carolyn. Carolyn, if you could please tell us your title and the company you work for.
Sure. So my name is Carolyn Farmer. My title today is a Senior Technical Advisor for the PEO for Missiles and Space, and PEO stands for Program Executive Officer. But I technically work with the Army, of course, as an overarching command. I work for the Development Command, the Aviation and Missile Center. I've been an employee here, a government civilian employee, since 2001, October of 2001, as a matter of fact.
Wow, how about that? Congratulations on just passing your 20 years there. 2 decades is quite an accomplishment.
It is. It feels like a blink of an eye, really.
Wow, that's so cool. So walk me through your day-to-day job.
Okay. Well, so day to day today has changed very much from, 20 plus years ago when I started my career. I started, as I mentioned, in October 21. And if you'll do some historical landmarks there, basically 1 month after the tragedies of 9/11. And so that's very pertinent in where the Army was bringing on massive amounts of engineers, scientists, folks to really combat the global war on terror at the time. And it was a scary time in our nation, really. But I knew I wanted to do something more, and I knew I wanted to be something bigger, if you will, as a young 21-year-old, trying to figure out what to do with this awesome engineering degree that I had. So my day to day today is really to support Army modernization initiatives. A few years ago, the Army stood up what's called the Army's Futures Command. It's based out of Austin, Texas, but they've got offices across all the nation, basically. And basically, they were stood up to transform our Army and modernize it to its extensive capabilities that it is today. We've got a lot of work to do still. And so many of my initiatives are developing from an acquisition standpoint, many of the new initiatives and weapon systems for our Army from the aviation, as well as a missile background, if you will. But really also performing a lot of sustainment activities. So once we field those weapon systems across the entire world, how do we sustain them more effectively and more efficiently? How do we get smarter in how we take care of our weapon systems so that they're doing what they need to do to keep our soldiers and personnel safe? Over.
That is incredible. So, Carolyn, you talked about some of your initiatives. Are you able to give me any examples?
Yeah, absolutely. I started my career as a very young mechanical engineer and immediately fell into the reliability engineering field. So, reliability, obviously, we all know what that term means, but basically, does the system do what we say it's going to do? And will it perform and do what its intended function is? So early on in my career, I got very much involved in sustainment activities for missile systems. Specifically, one of those was the Hellfire missile. It's been in production since the early 80s, and it's still in production today. Many different foreign allies, as well as, of course, the U.S. Army, Navy, and Air Force all use this weapon system. But I got to travel the world very early on in my career, for the first probably 10 years of my career, and travel the world, experiencing new cultures, meeting with many of our foreign allies, and helping sustain what's called the Stockpile Reliability Program and provide sustainment to those weapon systems all over the world. And at the time, of course, it was the global war on terror, so we had missile systems, quite frankly, everywhere, specifically in the Middle East. But I got to travel to Europe, Asia, you name it, to help many of our foreign allies sustain these weapon systems. And that transitioned for me into a really solid understanding of how we should be sustaining our weapon systems, and a desire to help educate many of our foreign allies across the world into making sure their weapon systems were safe and reliable and could be used if needed. And that in turn helps them take care of themselves, if you will, where the U.S. Army has to provide less assistance should something happen. So we want to help them be knowledgeable on how to make sure that they can sustain their weapon systems. But that transpired into, again, a solid understanding of how to take care of stuff, right? Weapon systems, helicopters, you name it, all across the world. Well, about 5 years ago, the Army, again, going through modernization. How do we transform and make ourselves more elite and develop new weapon systems and capabilities that really meet the needs of our nation? With our major near-peer adversaries across the world, we have what's called the Great Power Competition, ensuing all over the world. Whenever we need to, it's best to, and I understand, deter aggression, deter war, but we want to be ready as a nation to take anything on that we need to. And to do that, we've got to really invest in technology development and developing new capabilities for our soldiers. And so about 5 years ago, the Army stood up an organization called the RCTO. It stands for Rapid Capabilities and Critical Technologies Office. It was led by, and still is today, a 3-star general right here in our backyard of Huntsville and on Redstone Arsenal. And that command was stood up to deliver prototypes, to develop and deliver prototypes for these initial capabilities to our soldiers. And one of the first systems that I worked on during that assignment was the long-range hypersonic weapon. You may have seen some of the buzz in the news over the last several years, but the hypersonic munition, of course, travels more than Mach 5 speed, and of course meets our near-peer adversaries should anything be required. So developing something from scratch was something exciting, very new. How do you develop something that doesn't even exist today? And then how do you field it? How do you train our soldiers on how to use it?
Right.
And how do you deliver it with that speed and capability? And we're not talking about taking 20 years to deliver a new capability. We're talking about a matter of a few years, a couple of years to do development, testing, integration, and delivery. Our soldiers can't wait that long.
Right.
And so we've needed to get that prototype out as soon as possible. So that was a really exciting project for me over the last several years. I learned
Absolutely.
a lot. I met a lot of cool people and developed a lot of great teamwork to get that job done very quickly. So it was exciting.
I can imagine. Carolyn, so I love our military in all branches, and I just have to be honest, it's unbelievable being here talking to you right now, because you always think, you know, as a patriotic person, as someone who loves the military, I hope they have every tool they need. I hope they have the best advancements. I'm so glad they're on our side. Let's make their jobs as easy as humanly possible. And that's your job. That's what you do every single day, is better equip them, and that is incredible.
It was a tremendous eye-opening experience for me. With that position alone, at the RCTO, I met many of the faces of our soldiers that we were delivering that weapon system to, the long-range hypersonic weapon system. That battery was standing up at Joint Base Lewis McChord in Washington State, so I traveled out there quite a bit to meet with our soldiers, to talk with them about what we were doing to develop this weapon system, to do the testing, to make sure it was safe, and then invited them to many of our test events, meaning soldiers, when we hand them weapon systems, we go through the development, the acquisition, and then hand them a system and say, what do you think, right? Well, this is great. This is terrible. This is wonderful. But what happens if we needed to go faster? And what happens if you brought soldiers in through soldier-centered design and sat toe-to-toe with a bunch of cool engineers and many of my teammates, and we designed this thing together? And so they coined a term called soldier-centered design. And I would even take that further with logistics center design. Bring the people that are going to be using this weapon system to the design table with all the cool engineers across the Army, many of our industry partners, and let them tell you what they think in our initial design before we've ever started to bend steel. So we had virtual reality goggles on these soldiers to take a look at the design in VR before we ever built anything. And can you imagine the laundry list of comments the engineers received from the soldiers and the people who would actually use, sustain, move, transport this weapon system? And so we were able to incorporate many of their comments and feedback into the design. And I think that's incredibly powerful. That's how we get it more right as we develop those first prototypes to the field.
That's just wonderful. So Carolyn, walk me through what type of schooling you went through, what type of degree you have, and how educationally you got to the point where you are today.
Yeah, thanks. So education is paramount. From my family background, my dad was in the South Vietnamese military, of course, before the war, and his education that the Navy provided him was absolutely paramount to his ultimate escape from that communism and taking our family to a better life, I'll say, to a refugee camp, and then coming to America, where we truly is the land of opportunity. I'm the first one in my family born here in America, and education, again, was absolutely paramount to my father. It was something that could never be taken away from you in his eyes as a POW. He always retained his education, and he wanted to instill that same value to his 3 daughters. And so I graduated from Auburn University, War Eagle, with a degree in mechanical engineering. I finished that degree in about 3 years, went my summers, and really wanted to get into the workforce and be able to do something. So I finished in about 3 years and joined Boeing initially for the International Space Station. And as I mentioned earlier, within a matter of 8-9 months, 9/11 happened.
Right.
And again, I knew I wanted to do more. So I came on board with the Army, and the Army has been just an incredible organization that has invested in me. So about 10 years ago, I signed on with the Army to do the Naval Postgraduate School program. And through that program, I still got to do my day job, do a couple of classes a semester on the side, and then homework and things in the evenings. But really, it was all civilian based, and it was an Army sponsored initiative through the Naval Postgraduate School. So I got my master's degree on the side of my day job, and it was all paid for, of course, with the Army. And that degree is in program management. So I have a 4-year degree in basically a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering, and then, of course, a master's degree in program management through the Army.
Very
separately, cool. Moving forward, I just got accepted, actually, just a few months ago, to the Army's Senior Service College Fellowship. I applied to this initiative and this acquisition school and just got accepted. So as of July of this year, I'll actually step away from my day job for 10 months. And again, another tremendous opportunity for the Army to invest in my career and learn a whole lot more about strategy, leadership, and things that I hope will I can apply to the Army as I move on in my career.
Carolyn, congratulations, and I wish you the best of luck. What an opportunity. So I want to ask you, of course it's the engineering, but aside from just that, of the letters in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, aside from just the engineering, which of those letters would you say most applies to your job?
I would say at this point in time, more of the technology. So technology development, technology advancement. But with all of that comes a tremendous amount of teamwork. There is nothing that we can do on our own. So throughout my career in, yes, engineering, I've learned so much of the technical aspects. That's foundational. All of the things you learn in school, all of the things that you will learn in the first few years of career, very highly technical. And for me, while that was exciting and I love figuring things out, the technology development side of what we do within the Army and advancing those capabilities and then delivering them to our soldiers takes a tremendous amount of teamwork. So it really, yes, the engineering, the technical piece is there, but it's really those soft skills too that a lot of women possess and are very good at, and helping understand teamwork, diversity, pulling all of those attributes together to form a team and bring a goal to the table and a proposed goal to the table. So, solving the tough problems of the world, basically. So the technology advancement piece is really empowering to me, and I really am excited to be a part of it.
Absolutely. That's so key. And it's on both sides of the aisle. I know so many men who do this as well, but there are so many women that are so great at teamwork, like you said, at multitasking, at making sure everybody at the table has a voice, at keeping things on track. Those are some of those female soft skills that I think can be used as such an advantage in whichever STEM field you choose.
Absolutely. That's paramount for sure.
It is. Well, I know you're a busy woman, so I have one last question for you, and then I want to let you go so you can get back to saving the world and saving the country. But if you, Carolyn, had a message to young girls or young students in general who wanted to join the STEM workforce one day, what would your message to them be?
Oh, I have so many over my career, for sure. I'm so excited to see that there are so many more, women in STEM as my career has progressed. I was one of 4 engineers in my mechanical engineering, one of 4 female engineers in my mechanical engineering class. So that was pretty odd to see. And now you can certainly see the diversity that is, taking over, and I love it. So the message that I would provide is continue to pursue and shatter those glass ceilings. Surround yourself with mentors of females in the STEM field. I have found so many mentors here on the Arsenal whom I would like to emulate. And so I have initiated many of those conversations with them, many of which are, of course, women in senior executive service positions, someone that I would like to emulate, but also that they have a family, because finding that balance, you're never going to find a perfect balance by any means. You do what works for you. But I want to also message to these young women that you don't always have to choose between a career and a family. You can have both. It takes a tremendous amount of effort, and it's okay to reach out and get help. Meaning, we have grandparents of our children, like our parents still live in the area. So reaching out and asking for help is not a sign of failure. Everybody needs a little help sometimes. So, maybe my family might complain little bit about, the time of dinner some days, given the imbalance of my job and family life. But you can do both. You don't have to give up one for the other. So that's truly my message. Find those great mentors, emulate them, find who you want to be, and start working with them to have a voice of reason for you to bounce ideas off of again. And then make sure you surround yourself with a tight-knit circle that can support you as you grow and move in your career. Because at the end of the day, many of these STEM fields need the diversity. And it's not just diversity in our gender or our race or ethnicities. It's truly diversity of thought, our diverse educations, our diverse backgrounds, where we come from, our diverse values. Those are the things that are going to help solve the problems of the world. And we absolutely need your diverse input as a female in the STEM field to help us solve the hard problems.
I love that. I absolutely love everything about that. Well, Carolyn, I will let you go, but thank you so much for your time, and thank you for what you're doing for our servicemen and women, for what you're doing for all of us and our country. We appreciate your contribution, and thank you for sharing your expertise with us today. This is going to be great. I know a lot of people are going to love this one.
Thank you so much, Grace. Thanks for the opportunity.
Have a great day.
To share my story. You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.